I started freelancing when I was like 13, dropped out of school, and just basically decided I wanted a career in tech. Being the lazy, or as I would call it, efficient kid that I was, I just like called like big companies. And I'm like, so do you, trying to sound older so they don't know I'm 13. I'm like, so do you just not need a degree for this role or anything? They're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, what do you need? A portfolio. Okay, why am I going to school now? I'm not building my portfolio sitting in history class. So I kind of just made the executive decision to stop going to school.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Szymanski. I got a really good one for you. I know I say that every single time, but I really enjoy having these conversations, and I'm recording this intro right after our chat. My chat with Julian Galluzzo, and he is an interesting character. I actually learned so much about him. His journey has been incredible, and I just briefly, because what I like to do in these intros is kind of give you the backstory. About, I want to say maybe a year ago at this point or so, I got hooked up with him, and he is the community relations, essentially, like the dev partner at the community dev partner at Memberstack. And Memberstack is a really cool plugin. You guys should go check it out if you're in the Webflow space, even if you're in the WordPress space, or even beyond. I mean, they're a framework to create. I have a whole video on them, but to create like membership platforms, so user authentication, databases, members, etc. Right? But Julian is one of the main people over there, like kind of building the community around that, creating content around that, just exploring it, marketing, etc. Right? And I knew about Julian from our interaction there where we did some stuff together. We worked on some promotion, some content things. Now, recently, obviously, everybody that I talk to, I like to try to, follow them on X or LinkedIn, et cetera, kind of see what they're up to, what they got going on. And recently, I've been seeing Julian pop up a lot more in my feed, not just on X, but also on YouTube. There's this wave of AI, right? This wave of AI automation, AI for app building, for website building, et cetera, all of this stuff. There's certain individuals that you see that are kind of like, you have to see like some of it's hype beast stuff. Some of it's just like, oh, we're hyping everything up. Some of it is actual helpful information. Some of it's like, oh, just cool things that they're doing. Julian shares everything that he does. And it's really cool to see that. And so I'm just scrolling through my X feed, the past few weeks, and I see Julian sharing a lot of really cool things that he's doing with AI, different web apps, different, designs, as Gemini 3 Pro and Opus 4.5 comes out. And when I see that, I am just called to talk to these people because I want to learn more. I want to learn not just what they're doing, but also their story. Come to find that during this conversation, Julian has one of the most interesting stories that I've ever heard, just the trajectory that he had. I don't really want to spoil anything, but I'll tell you that it starts with him effectively dropping out of high school when he was 13 years old to build websites, freelance, etc. And the whole journey is incredible. I tried to do my best to double click on certain things that I thought might help you as a listener, or, if you're still going through your career, maybe if honestly, I'm becoming a dad here soon. So like, I want to think about like how I'm going to raise my kids and, thinking of somebody, think of being a parent and my kid dropping out of high school when they're 13. We talk a lot about that towards the end of the episode. So we talk a lot about, like I said, Julian's journey, his experience so far in AI, the way that he's using it to build really cool things extremely fast. And it's just a fantastic conversation. So I'll leave, obviously, as always, chapters down below. Make sure you check out everything Julian has going on down in the description as well. But I'm just going to kick it to the conversation because it's a really good one. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian Galluzzo. All right, Julian, my man, we are here. Appreciate you sitting down with me, brother.
Appreciate you having me.
So let's think here real quick, just as a quick rebrief. You're with Memberstack. You are... Yep. My interpretation of what you do is you're kind of like you're the community guy at Memberstack. You are doing a lot of cool things, and we talked because we've worked together with some projects for Memberstack and stuff like that on the promotion side. But we could definitely talk about Memberstack because there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. The big thing that I've seen out of you recently that has completely got me I'm extremely interested is all of the AI shit that you're doing, and like you're building apps. With your buddy Alex. I've seen a couple of those videos. So, I mean, I want to go through the whole story, obviously, but kind of just, you want to give the people a a little bit of a background about who you are, what you're doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, as for what I'm doing right now, we don't really have like set job titles at Memberstack, like where you just kind of get hired and this is what you do. So I kind of gave myself the name of like community project developer. That being said, I've been seeing more and more as time goes on. A lot of people use the title developer relations, like DevRel. That's probably the closest bucket to sit me into at this point. That being said, super quick backstory. I started freelancing when I was like 13, dropped out of school, and just basically decided I wanted a career in tech because I wasn't a big fan of the place where I was living at the time. And I'm like, I just want to be able to move around. So I really quickly got into like making websites as a freelancer, did that for a while, then ended up getting this client who I actually started an agency with. So I had like, kind of like, I don't know, people say full stack marketing agency, but like we did everything. We're mainly focused on building websites, but we also did advertising, we did branding, all sorts of things. I ran that for a while, actually grew an agency from 2 people, myself and my co-founder, to 40 people at the time that I left. And now it's not all full time. Let's say like, I think it was about 20 full time and like 20 kind of contractors, but pretty good. Grew that agency super quick. That being said, I was like super young in my career, and I was at a point where all I was doing was management. And I'm like, I haven't really had enough time to like hone in on my skill. I like building stuff, so I want to build stuff more. So I ended up leaving the agency, and one thing led to another. I was doing some freelancing, and I ended up joining here at Memberstack. And basically for the past, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years now, building web apps has been the primary thing that I've been focused on. So I'm like, okay, you have people in the traditional development process and they all know their place and all that fun stuff, but I just like building things quick. Like as quick as I can build something, get it live, test the concept, whatever it is, that is my goal. And so really got into no-code tools as much as I possibly could, basically anything that I could possibly use. But my main stack was actually using Webflow and Memberstack. Like I was a Memberstack customer long before I ended up joining here. And so, yeah, no code was the fastest way. Like you can use tools like Webflow, Memberstack, Make, Zapier, whatever, to build some pretty decent web apps in not very much time at all. But things definitely changed now that AI is getting so much better. I was probably one of the original people coding with AI, just using like ChatGPT to write me some scripts that I can put on my apps, put on my sites, copying and pasting, back and forth. But now the point where it's at, I mean, it's insane. Like I can build things that would take in the traditional development process, like months and months and months. I can build those out in hours, days, whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, I'm left with a product that is almost the same as if it came out of a traditional development process. I can't take credit for that. The AI companies, they can take credit for that, but I guess I'm pretty good at using them. I've been using them for a while, and maybe I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm making some pretty cool stuff, man. Yeah. So that's the high level.
Okay. Well, it's quite a story. Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of things I want to double click on in there. Because I mean, kind of like with these episodes on Fueled by Progress here, I'd like to kind of like see how people's trajectory was. And I didn't even know some of that stuff about you, obviously. Like, so you started freelancing at an extremely young age. So that's obviously, when I hear people's stories like that, I'm like, okay, that's one thing that's obviously extremely unique. So, I mean, I don't know if do you have like any, I know you kind of mentioned it, but do you have any other like insight on like what do you think made you want to make that drastic of a leap at such a young age? It's something that I can't even fathom doing just because I was like super traditional and just like forced myself through like college, even though I didn't want to do that. And you were even younger.
No, I didn't even finish high school. So like let's say growing up, like as a young child, I was often called lazy. But the thing is, I wasn't lazy. I just really hate inefficiency. Like anything that is slow, I don't like. As you can see from what I was doing, first I was building apps with no-code tools. Well, I still am, but mostly building apps with AI now. And so the thing for me was like, I had 2 goals. One was I wanted to make decent money. And 2 was I wanted to be able to move around. I didn't want to be locked to one specific place. Countries change, places change, you change as a human being. sometimes you want to move. So that basically led me to like career in tech. So what I actually did at the time was when I was 13, I had some background, like literally playing Roblox and like selling skins and stuff like that. So I started to get into design just like for fun when I was like, 8, 9, 10, stuff like that. And so I ended up Googling like what are the most in-demand design jobs, and what came up was, at least at the time, user experience design. And so being the lazy, or as I would call it, efficient kid that I was like, okay, what's the actual path for me to become a UX designer? So I ended up looking for jobs. Like I had I literally just Googled like what job I wanted to do. So I wasn't applying for them, but I was looking at them, looking at the requirements, and something came up that I was shocked by. I'm like, none of these say you need a degree. But I was thinking maybe it was just missing. So what I ended up doing was I just like called like big companies. Like I think one of them was actually like Microsoft, an office that they had. And I'm like, so do you, trying to sound older so they don't know I'm 13. I'm like, so do you just not need a degree for this role or anything? They're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, what do you need? I said, a portfolio. So I'm like, okay, why am I going to school now? I'm not building my portfolio sitting in history class. I'm building my portfolio, like working on my portfolio. So I kind of just made the executive decision to stop going to school. And my parents were not thrilled about that. But I mean, hey, at the end of the day, as long as you're making money, who cares whether or not you went to school? It's a means to an end.
Again, that's something that like I've heard in very few other stories, but that is, I admire that level of, I feel like I'm a self-introspective person, like heavily, but like at that young of an age, there's no fucking way. Like I would have known to like have that. And that's pretty sick. Cause like, it's funny that you say that the speed thing too, cause everyone says that. Everyone says like, oh, you got to be fast. You got to do this. You got to move. You got to break things. You got to fix stuff. Like just keep going. And the more that I get into this, it's like, yeah, that is probably like one of the most important skills, because it's really just like a spectrum. It's like on one side is as fast as you can possibly go, and on the other side is like perfectionism or something. And if you're not chasing the one side of the spectrum, because you're never going to be like 100% efficient. But if you're not like forcing yourself that way, I just feel like I constantly get pulled the other way towards like, oh, this has to be perfect before I throw it out there. And yeah, I mean, you want it to be good, obviously, and you always want to iterate, but it's just unrealistic. And I think that's a good way to frame it, where you just want it to be as efficient as possible, and like just use whatever means you can to get it to that more to that speed zone, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny that you say that, because I get pulled in the opposite direction. Like if I just go with my instincts, I will move too fast and break everything, which is not always good. Like you said, you don't want to be all the way on one side. On one side, you're going to just deliver garbage, and on the other side, you're going to deliver nothing, right? So you want to be somewhere, and I get dragged closer to just push stuff out. I have to remind myself, like, calm down. You want it to be good. You don't just want to release something. You want to release something good. And I know so many people have the complete opposite problem. So I think everyone just sits somewhere on that spectrum. Yeah.
You mentioned that, so like you're going through this journey, you're starting up the freelance stuff. Talk to me about how this agency from a client situation went down.
Oh, yeah. So basically what I decided to do was, like, I was fresh out of school, not because I graduated, but because I decided to stop going. And I'm like, okay, how am I actually going to start getting clients? And so what I did was, I forget what the number was. I want to say it was like 50. It was like up until the point where I got blocked. LinkedIn messages, literally messaging everyone. I lived at my parents' house. I had no bills to pay. I'm like, this is what I do. Here's my work. Can I do something for you for free? Like, just all I wanted to do was get myself busy. My recommendation to people starting out is always this. First, fill up your time, 40 hours a week doing free work for people. Then, after you have succeeded in filling up your time, now you charge $5 an hour. Tell all of those people, a lot of them who just want free work are going to leave. Some of them are going to pay you. Now you make $5 an hour. Fill up your time at $5. Move on to 10. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So anyways, I was doing that. I was just messaging people like, hey, let me do some work for you. And this guy was like, oh, okay, I'm like an advertising freelancer and I have a client who needs a website. Gives me a little brief on it. He's like, we don't need to do free. You know, I'll pay you. How much would you charge for this? I look at it. I'm like, now $200. He ended up selling that site to the client for, I think, like $5,000.
Wow.
And so by the end of that, he's like, huh, okay. Well, this guy's willing to work for not very much money. We could probably do some more of this. And so he's like, I have a name for an agency. You know, if you want, we can do it, join together, 50-50. I'm like, dude, I don't know how old I was at the time. I think it was 15. And I'm like, yep, let's go for it. And so that was it. And I actually ended up not too long after that. I was like I said, so I'm from Canada originally, city called Barrie. It's like South Ontario suburbs, like super suburban. I just didn't like it. I'd spent a lot of time in Europe when I was younger, just on vacation. I'm like, I want to live in Europe. And so my co-founder of the agency, he was a Canadian, but like his family was from Serbia. And he's like, you ever been to Serbia? I'm like, no, what? Serbia, what's that? So I ended up actually going to Serbia and like, I stayed there for like 7 years. Like I've been in Serbia from the time I was 17 until like 6 months ago.
Wow.
And yeah, I could talk more about the agency for sure, but that's like kind of how that begun.
Okay. So are you 23 now?
I am
24.
Hold on. I was born in 2001. So yep. In a couple days, actually, I'm 24.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Good. Always good to have the frame of reference here, because like everybody I talk to moves at such different speeds, and you started super early, so that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So from that agency side, okay, so that's interesting. So you basically co-founded an agency at 15 with your business partner client, you know, former client essentially. How did that like? Because the thing that like you said in the initial high level that I was really interested in as well is you mentioned that through that experience, like you were doing a little bit of freelancing, and then through the agency experience, you realized that you're almost like managing too much, and and you were getting away from like building and the skills, and like that kind of resonates with me, and I'm wondering how much that it probably resonates with the audience as well. But I think that, you know, I'm 29. I've been, you know, kind of obviously like my trajectory started later because I waited till I was done with college and shit, and I'm trying to think like I'm on the other aspect of that. Like I built a lot, and now I'm like ready to like, when I see AI tools, I'm like, oh, I can be the director now. Like I don't have to do any of the fucking work essentially. So like how do you, if we go back to your agency days with that context, how did that transpire? Were you actually managing like other devs or other AI type tooling, and how did you get to the point now where you want to build more, so to speak? Like how'd that all go down?
So it was teams. Basically, when we started out, my business partner, he was doing the sales and like business development side of things, and I was doing the delivery work. So at the start, all that meant was he found a client and I did the work for the client. That was basically the loop that we were in. And then we ended up getting busier, obviously started to hire people. And then it shifted to he managed the business development side of things and I managed the delivery side of things. Like I had a job title at the time that was like chief delivery officer. And this is something a lot of smaller companies do, is like they give everyone these like C-suite titles. Like, bro, it's a small agency. We don't need CEOs, CFO, like, you know, get a grip. But anyway, so that was my thing that I was doing. And it actually got to a point where I was, and this is very common, I think a lot of people would resonate with this. I was doing the work and we were getting so busy, but I was scared to hand off control because I hadn't done management at that point. Well, very little, you know, talking to some freelancers here and there. But like, I was scared to really have other people doing the bulk of the work. I was never getting around to just handing off control. We ended up getting this one client and I was working like 80, 90 hours a week at that point, and I got so overwhelmed that I just like found this kid. He was like a kid. He was the same age as me at the time. And I'm like, he seemed kind of promising. And I got so overwhelmed that I'm like, all right, you deal with it. Here's the client. Here's everything that you need. Deal with it. Because I can't. I literally do not have the bandwidth to do such a thing. So then he started doing more of the work and I was managing him. replicated that, brought in some more people, and then essentially my job was figuring out the project. So like sales team would come to me and go, okay, here's a potential client. What can we do for them? I'd figure it out. They would sell the project, hopefully get sold. And then I kind of break that up into specific tasks for the team. So it's like kind of like project management in a big way. Like realistically, my job title should not have been like chief delivery officer. It should have been like lead project manager. But that happened pretty quickly. That was within, I want to say, like a year and a half to 2 years of really starting this agency. And so I was good at what I did, designing, developing, but I was never, great at it. Let's put it that way. I was just good. And so once I made this move into management, I'm, just kind of trying to manage people here and there. And it's very hectic. Being a manager in an agency is insane because not only do you have your staff to deal with, but you also have however many clients to deal with. And if the agency is not run well, which I'm going to say this agency was absolutely not run well for numerous reasons, it can get really difficult. I was essentially the balancing act between clients who wanted too much and a delivery team that didn't want to do that much. So it was very difficult. It would be like I'd have to push back deadlines with the clients, and then the clients would want something else that's unreasonable, and then I have to talk to the team, and the team's unable to do it. It's like the key to running a good agency or freelance business is expectation setting. And for many reasons, we did not manage expectations very well. So basically, I just went, okay, I'm not enjoying this right now. I was having fun building. I want to get back into building. And I kind of set myself with the goal of like, I want to be the best in the world at what I do. And so I just decided to leave the agency with that goal in mind. And I started building.
When you say best in the world at what you do, what is your definition of that? Or is it just like is it just like whatever you're doing at the time, so to speak? Like what was your kind of your thought process?
So it was really just whatever I was doing at the time. Like, so the main thing that I did as far as an actual skill and actual trade was building sites in Webflow. That being said, there are people out there who are solely focused on animations. There's people who are solely focused on design. I'm kind of like the everything guy. So my goal was to be the best at delivering a general site in Webflow. So like company comes, they don't know what they're doing. I, for a good price, which is good for them and good for me because it didn't take me too long, build them like a full out system that their marketing team could manage. And then they have a beautiful site that actually empowers their marketing team. I wanted to be able to do that better than anyone else. So like you're a marketing team, you bring me on and I basically give you web infrastructure. That was my goal at the time. And I got into web apps a little bit before that, but it was like one of my focuses before it became my primary focus. And so then when I moved more into web apps, I wanted to become the best at rapidly making web apps. And that's pretty much still where I am today.
When did you make that move? Like, what year did you kind of like leave the agency and pivot?
It was 2022. Yeah.
Okay.
2022.
Okay. And then did you go back to like building at that point and freelancing, or did you try to go directly into like a job role and that's where you found Memberstack?
Well, actually, this one's definitely a funny story. So when I was like, I didn't just leave the agency and just be like, wanderlust, the world will take me where the world wants to take me. No, I kind of decided it. And then I was kind of talking to like other people, other companies on the side. And I ended up talking to this one agency. They seemed like super nice guys. I mean, they were nice guys, don't get me wrong. And they offered me like, and another thing was this, when I was working at the agency, the very complicated and convoluted finance structure of that agency basically meant like, I was making, like 2,000 one month, like 15,000, then like $200, and like it was nonsense. And I was about to have a kid too, so I really wanted like financial stability. And so this agency offered me a salary, which was pretty good. And so I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm down. So I ended up leaving my agency, joining this agency just to build sites, just to build really good sites really quickly. And along with that, previously I'd spoken to one of the co-founders of Memberstack, and we, built up a little rapport. And so he ended up contacting me, co-founder of Memberstack, being like, hey, we need X, Y, and Z done. I know that you do these things. What do you think? Can you make me a proposal? So I ended up talking to him, selling him. And so actually Memberstack became a client of this agency. Now, here's the thing about the agency. In short terms, there was a small team, and to put it nicely, I was holding it up. Let's just put it that way. As in, who dealt with finding the clients? Me. I was doing sales. Who dealt with communicating with the clients? Me. I was doing account management. Who dealt with delivering for the clients? Me. I was doing all of the delivery work. And so I basically became this agency. And when you become the owner of something in a big way, you do things on your own terms. You don't act as an employee would act. And along with that, the owners of the agency were like, oh, okay, we don't really, we're having a difficult month. Like, is it okay if we kind of like pay you your salary a bit later? I'm like, yeah, it's all good. I've had a business. I know how this works. You'll get around to it. I made a lot of sales, and let's just say they didn't get around to it. So I was still being like paid less than I agreed on. And so anyways, I was doing whatever I wanted to do. If I didn't feel like working that day, I wouldn't work that day. If I wanted to work on the weekend, I'd work on the weekend. And I got a message from my boss at the time once, and it was like kind of like a snarky little like, oh, like, so you're just not around today. And I responded in a similar way. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not around today, and I'll be around when I feel like being around. So thanks. Anyways, he didn't like that very well. I got fired and kicked out of Slack and all of that stuff. I didn't care. I had zero. They weren't even paying me. How can I care if I'm going to get fired? So that's all well and good. I'm just kind of sitting there laughing about it. I'm like, what are these guys going to do? They don't even know their own clients. Like, I was the one who was talking to them. I was the one who sold them. I was the one who did the work. And so naturally speaking, they all, I think there was 8 clients total, and I think 6 of them like reached out to me, and they're like, what happened? Why aren't you in Slack? And I'm like, yeah, I got fired. And they're like, well, what am I going to do? I don't even know these guys. How am I going to work with them? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. They're like, oh, because I'm, out of respect, like, I don't want to be like hunting for and like poaching someone's clients, even though it was a weird arrangement, and even though they didn't pay me, and even though all these things, they still owe me money to this day, by the way. You guys are watching this. Can you pay me, please? So I didn't poach any clients. They reached out to me. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. They asked if they can work with me. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So I ended up accidentally and with no bad intentions, like stealing this agency. And so one of my clients was obviously Memberstack. And so I'm working with these clients, working with Memberstack too. And then over a little while, I'm just like, Memberstack is the perfect clients. They let me do what I thought was best. They gave me room. They weren't bothering me about arbitrary deadlines and all that stuff. So I basically ended up like giving the rest of my clients to my friends, who I also knew were very good at it. I knew my clients were in good hands. I asked Memberstack, I'm like, do you guys want to like work on some like full-time arrangement? They were down, and that was 3 years ago. That, if my timing is correct, it was like the start of 2022 that I left the agency, and like the end of 2022 that I joined full-time at Memberstack. So everything I just told you was like in 2022.
Okay. I want to double click. We don't need to rehash the whole craziness of that second agency situation, but that is a hilarious story. But I do want to, I think back to my progression, and I've only really ever had like one like true, like you could call like almost more of a corporate type job. But I had a similar situation. I was there like through like at the end of college as an intern, and then a couple years after or whatever. And it wasn't a tech job. It was like in a real estate company, but I was a marketing and tech guy there. And it's just, anytime I hear a story like you just kind of mentioned, it reminds me of being like a true like employee that's kind of like, you were definitely like overworked and like under, kind of like, I don't want to say underappreciated, but like, that was just kind of like, that seemed like a Wild West there that you had going on. But like, I had a similar thing, and I'm like wondering, what did you try to mend that situation before it got to a point of like no return at all? Or was it just like, again, we don't need to go into specifics of that, but I'm thinking for other people that are in that position, especially like, young guys in their 20s and such, that they're going through, or even younger, and they're going through that type of thing. Was there anything you would have slightly done maybe differently there? Maybe it was reconcilable or whatever, but like just anything like that introspectively?
Yeah, so I mean, as a human being, I've been working on, myself and how I deal with situations and how I understand other people as time goes on. I was at a different point then to what I am now. And I think a problem that I had back then was very much that, like, if I saw a problem, something was happening, I would kind of just expect other people to understand why there's an issue. Like when I saw that, I was, let's say, putting in, there was 3 people really at this company, and I was putting in more work than the 2 founders combined. Like, the thing is, I would kind of just hope that other people would see that and do something about it. That's not the way that human beings work. Like, everyone has their own reality. I always say, if you were born in that person's shoes, you would be thinking the same thing as them right now, which is kind of stupid, but at the same time, it's very true. Like, it's obvious. Obviously, if you were them, you'd be them, go figure. But like, it's something I try to think about more. So like, I don't think that these are bad people in any way, shape, or form. I just, they didn't understand it. So what I should have done at the time was just be straight up, hey guys, I feel like this is what's happening. I feel like I'm doing all of the work and I'm not even being paid for it, and you guys aren't doing anything. At that point, if you get fired for that, you get fired for that. So what? What are you going to do? And to anyone watching this and thinking like, oh, well, easy for you to say, I had like a newborn child at the time. Like, no one's supporting me. I'm in a separate country. So like, it's not easy to just get fired. And I understand that. Have faith in your abilities and you'll be fine in life. But that's the main thing, really. I just kind of went, and it was similar. There was other problems that I'm not going to get into with my co-founder at the agency. Similar things where I very clearly see what's going on in my own reality, and I think it's a problem, but I don't raise that to the other person, my co-founder, my bosses. It's just, I kind of hope that we're on the same page, but until you communicate, you're never on the same page. And so I didn't communicate enough, and that's not what caused the situations, but could they have perhaps been reconciled? Yes. I mean, everything that happened, like the issues that I had in my agency and with my co-founder, are what led to me working with this other agency. And those issues led to me working with Memberstack. And I'm super happy with the way that all of this went. But could those situations, both my agency and the one that I worked in, have been reconciled before it broke? Absolutely. So if anyone watching this, if you want to fix your situation, if you feel like someone's doing you wrong, someone doesn't understand you, anything like that, say it to them. If they get mad at you being honest, you don't want to work with that person to begin with. And in that case, you're in a better position.
Yeah. Wise words. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're not, nobody's perfect. But I like double clicking on those learning experiences. So that is dope. Because everybody's, again, like you were saying, all of those things led you to where you're at now. And, I guess where we're at in the story is then you get to Memberstack, right? So, walk me through that. Obviously, this is kind of eventually here, kind of where we link up a little bit, I guess, like a couple years after that. And I mean, and also, you definitely do a little plug for Memberstack too, because, I've seen it, I've played around with it. Great product. Originally in the Webflow space, I kind of caught up while you guys were kind of like moving to WordPress land a little bit. What obviously you had the relationship, but also like from a tech perspective, what kind of drove you to that? And then what's the experience been like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I originally, when I was still with my agency, I watched a video from a guy whose name is Connor Finlayson, who I actually spoke to and did a recording with and posted some videos like last week, where he was using Memberstack. And I was like, wait, I've been building websites up until this point, but you can actually build web apps with these tools. And so I started using Memberstack, loved it. In a nutshell, Memberstack is a very easy way to add the following things to your website: authentication, payments, and now also databases. That's a new one. It wasn't a thing at the time. These are things which are very, let's say, they're difficult to add. And if you don't know what you're doing and you try to set up your own authentication, your own payments, you are like a prime suspect for hackers. And so Memberstack allowed me to just pay a subscription fee, get the stuff set up quickly, and launch the stuff and manage it with confidence. And so that was what I really liked about it. And I started using it, built some products, which essentially never took off. But then I was talking to the founder as well. And my recommendation to anyone who wants to work with someone is reach out to them and just ask what you can do. I reached out to Duncan, the co-founder, and I'm like, I love what you guys are doing. Let me know if I can help. And he, for whatever reason, he's like, you want to get on a call? So we talked. I don't even remember what we talked about, but like I probably gave him some ideas. I don't know. I seem to have left an imprint in his mind, which led to him reaching out at a later date. And I originally joined literally to build Webflow components, like, login pages, sign up pages, heroes, CTAs, you name it, nav bars, footers, just design them, build them, release them, promote them. That was what I initially joined to do. And that has taken a long path to the point where I'm doing now what I'm currently doing, which is, let's call it developer relations. But yeah, no, it's basically just, it's a really great product. The team seemed awesome. The team is awesome. And yeah, one thing led to another, and it went from being a product that I used to a person that I knew to a client of a company that I worked at to being a client of me as a freelancer to working there full time. So good path. And a lot happened throughout that, obviously.
Wild ride. Do you, I want to take a quick step back before we dive into like more of that and then the AI stuff. Would you classify yourself, obviously you have this incredible journey. Would you classify yourself as, I know you said the everything guy earlier, but if you had to be introspective and say, like, what are the things like that you don't like, you're good at, you're bad at, I'm thinking more of like, let's start in the technical realm. Like recently, I'll give you an example. Recently, I realized that there's no reason that I should ever design a website myself ever. And by design, I mean like literally like ever be in Figma or anything like that. I'm just not a designer. Like I don't really enjoy it. I'm not good at designing. I don't really, like I know what a good website should have structurally, but I'm not very good at designing. So I just shouldn't be the designer. I should never do that role. Either somebody else or AI or something should handle that. Developer, kind of similar. I'm probably a better developer than designer because I'm more logical. I like understand code. Like, I did a little bit in college, out of college, etc. But I'm still like not like a true developer. So I feel like we're kind of similar on this. Like we're kind of like a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. Yep. What would you say if you had to like analyze yourself like that? How would you bucket yourself in those ways?
Great question. I mean, I can get into specific skills, but I'd probably rather just explain it on the high level, which is like, there are people who are significantly better than me at everything that I do, and I'm aware of that. But I don't think there are that many people who can do all the things that I do at the level in which I do them. So what I mean by that is I get good at something and then it bores me and I move on to the next thing. And I learn that I get good at it, bores me, and I move on. I never get great at something. So what that means is I can make you a design and it's going to be a good design. It's going to be a very good design, but there are people who can make way better, way more well thought out, creative designs that match the brand. Like if you want the best design, don't call me. If you want the cleanest code base, don't call me. If you want the best of anything, don't call me. But if you want someone who can do everything well, then I'm pretty confident that I'm at least one of the best at doing all of these things that I do. So for example, like I can set up and run a decent paid media campaign. I know numerous people who are 1,000 times better than me at running ads. I started my career, like I said, as a designer. That was my initial focus. Can design great stuff. I know way better designers than me. Development, same thing. So really, that's it. Like, here's the thing. When you have teams working together, marketer, designer, developer, manager, all of these different people, there is an inherent inefficiency in this transfer of information from one person to the other. So if you are better off hiring one person like me than a mediocre developer, designer, animator, all these things. Because I can do it. You communicate one thing to me, I know all these things and I can do all these things. So that in a nutshell is it. Good at everything, great at nothing.
Okay. That's fair. No, I mean, it resonates with a lot of people, I think, especially now because it's so easy to learn things. And if you're that type of person that resonates with me a lot, like if you're the type of person that goes through a stage of like extreme learning, like very deep learning in one topic, then I explain it like this. Recently, I've gone through the last 2 years, everybody's heard this story, but the last 2 years, I've learned like WordPress very deeply, like specifically the community aspect and like the technical, but I kind of already knew that. I mean, I feel like I learn like 80 to 90% of what there is to learn, and I get good at whatever the topic is. And it's like, all right, I am like squeezing the shit out of this like lemon now, and it's like it's basically dry. I need to go somewhere else because this is no longer fun. I don't feel like it's diminishing returns, however you want to describe it. And so that I completely feel you on that.
Exactly. It's that lemon. Like, I'm going to squeeze the lemon when most of the juice is coming out of it, and then I'm going to throw it. And someone else can come and pick up that lemon, and there's more juice in there. And I'm aware that I'm leaving the lemon with additional juice, but I don't want that last bit of juice. I want a new lemon.
Yeah. I hear you. I want to make a couple other distinctions here. So like you talked about, well, first of all, throughout your whole journey there, were you mostly doing the design and dev, I mean, whatever design tools, but like when you're saying you're building websites for the agencies that you were dealing with and everything like that, was it mostly in Webflow? Like, or were you different platforms? Just paint me a quick picture of like the tech that you were using when you're doing the stuff. We'll call it manually, right?
Yep. So at the beginning, before agency days, my tech stack was whatever tech stack the current client was using. They would say, hey, I need a website in WordPress. And I'd say, well, I've never used WordPress before, but not a problem. I'll figure it out. And so I used everything, like absolutely everything under the sun. I used it. I used Webflow. I used WordPress. I used Squarespace. I used Wix. I used probably some other ones that don't even exist anymore. And then my co-founder at the agency, he was like, okay, take a look at Webflow. So I think I tried it out before that. I can't actually remember, but he's like, go ahead and try Webflow. So why I liked Webflow so much, and if you look at the first site I made in Webflow, it was disgusting. It was horrible. It was the ugliest site I've ever seen in my life. But I was really happy about it because at the time I'd used WordPress with, I think Divi was what I was using. I do not like Divi at all.
Yeah,
I don't. I mean,
it's got a bad rep, but it was one of the OGs. It was one of the OGs, like page builders. Yep. But yeah, there's options now. There's options, and Divi is not one that I would choose in this day and age, right? So I had gotten fed up with basically I would use a tool that's like so restrictive that I couldn't do anything, but it was easy. And then I'd use another tool that wasn't restrictive, but you're basically coding at that point. And I was the kind of person who would have no idea how code works. I'd jump in and I'd do something. I'd figure it out, some way, shape, or form. So when I ended up trying Webflow, I'm like, whoa, this is not very hard, and yet I can do anything. So I really got into Webflow, and that agency ended up becoming like mainly a Webflow agency, and still is to this day a pretty big Webflow agency. So that was basically what got me into it at that point in time. And I was like, I'm going to say pretty much all in on Webflow for a lot of my career. And then we actually ended up, so we realized that in the WordPress space, now at this point, I'm working for Memberstack for a while, we're together, and we realized we're like, there's not really anything like Memberstack in the WordPress space. Again, something that can easily allow you to add authentication, payments, now database, to your WordPress site. There are some plugins, but like at that point it becomes all managed, or it's not managed. So like something like MemberPress, for example, it's kind of like something that you bolt onto your website, but at the end of the day, you are still managing your members. You're still managing your payments. Like things can break within that. You would have to update that plugin, all sorts of different things. Nothing existed quite like Memberstack. And so we were talking about the potential of getting into WordPress. And so me doing what I do, which is
developer relations, let's call it, I immediately decide, okay, it's been a while, but I got to give WordPress another shot. And so what you hear so often in the Webflow community is like, oh, WordPress is a dinosaur, it's outdated, it sucks, nobody likes WordPress. That's just false. I mean, straight up from the numbers, like the majority of websites on the internet by far over anything else are made with WordPress. And there's a reason why. The thing about WordPress is it is infinitely flexible. But I love the speed that Webflow gives me. And so when I started getting back into WordPress, I discovered Bricks Builder. And immediately after I started using it, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Here's the thing. Webflow, you can run into issues like some HTML tag isn't supported or something like that. You want that to be fixed, you either have to find a hacky workaround or just cry to Webflow until maybe one day they implement it. So when I ran into similar limitations in Bricks Builder, I'm like, I can just go into my code and change it, and you know, like the floodgates have opened. I can do whatever I wanted to do. And Bricks gives you similar flexibility and speed to what Webflow does. And so I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm a huge fan of WordPress. Honestly, I think I don't share that view that a lot of the Webflow community has, that it's outdated. It's not. WordPress is like code. I mean, that's kind of a silly comparison, but like in the way that if your project is bloated and sucks that you coded, are you blaming code or are you blaming your code? Same thing with WordPress. If your site sucks and it's bloated, that's not WordPress's fault. That's your fault because you built something unsustainable that's bloated. So, you know, and at this point, if you're asking me which one I recommend, it's all about that. What's more important to you? Webflow is managed. If Webflow breaks, Webflow is going to fix it. You can build a Webflow site, leave it for 3 years. You got to pay for it every month, and it's not cheap. But, you know, you can leave it live for 3, 4, 5 years. Doesn't matter. That site is going to be working. It's going to be live. You're good to go. WordPress, that's not true. But at the same time, it's infinitely flexible. And so I love both. And nowadays, main thing I'm using, I mean, AI, it's kind of hard to say like I'm using AI instead of WordPress or Webflow or anything like that. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. So the AI stuff, I'm assuming we'll get into on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to hit on that WordPress point. Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, and possibly some of the audience members, just because that's kind of where a lot of my audience has been built. But yeah, WordPress is interesting. We don't need to go down the entire rabbit hole, but I like your perspective because I don't see you as like an outsider of WordPress necessarily, but I feel like you've been primarily a Webflow guy, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like, it's really cool to see the perspective of you coming in and being like, oh, there's a lot of flexibility here. There's a lot of robustness, but I think a couple key elements there is like, yes, it's really robust. It's more of like a framework to build websites, even though it's not technically a framework, but it's more of like, it gives you the options. It gives you all that. It's kind of how it's morphed into, not how it started, but it's more of like a framework now. And if you fuck up the framework, then it's your fault, like you were saying.
Exactly.
And if, you know, and there's, even though there's a lot of options, yeah, you do have to like, you don't have to baby it, but you do have to manage it a little bit more your own. Yeah, so I think it's cool to see. It's cool to see that that, you know, somebody like yourself that like has had this experience elsewhere. You come in, you see, oh, it's a different tool, and it's not old, but it's actually literally old because it's been around for so long. It's mature, and there's some baggage that comes with that. There's some baggage that comes with that, but at the same time, like it's still doable. Now, I say all of that. And if there's any WordPress stans watching this, they're going to be pissed because like the way that I've changed in the last like 2 weeks from watching like some of your content, watching some other people on YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, the game is literally changing right in front of our eyes. I feel like, I don't know if you share this exact same sentiment, but this is one of the big catalysts that you know, as I was seeing some of your stuff, we had to talk is what is going on right now. Like, I mean, like there is just a huge change in, you know, I saw you're in Alex's video about you guys building 6 apps in like 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it was in Google AI Studio. And I've started playing around with that. I've been playing around with Claude Code now. I mean, I built a valuable agentic workflow with its own like app interface in 2 days in Claude Code. I mean, this is a bottomless pit right now. It just keeps getting larger. But like, what was the thing that, I know you've been using it kind of like here and there, obviously, but like, what was the trajectory here with your relationship with AI, and just like, what are you working on now? How are you playing around with it? What are you doing?
Yeah. So, okay, this is a big one to
Yeah.
unpack. So I mentioned earlier, I started with like, I believe, I don't know what other people are doing. I believe I was one of the first like AI coders, vibe coders, we'll call it. Um, because I just used ChatGPT to make scripts for my Webflow sites, pasted them in. I was hyped because I used to have to ask a developer, write me a script that does this. They'd send it to me, I'd add it. It was this whole thing. So when I could just do that with ChatGPT, it blew my mind, and I really got hooked on that super quickly. But that was just simply for little scripts here and there on the Webflow site. Anything more than that you tried to do, context became a problem. So that was all that I used it for. And over time, that started to change to the point where I could actually use like the limited coding knowledge that I had plus ChatGPT to help me debug and stuff like that. And I was actually able to get like, string together some working fully custom web apps. I was shocked by that, but it was just kind of like a little tool. But I kept on doing it as time went on. Every time a new model came out, I would kind of test it out and see what's happened. And over time, it started to get better and better. Like it went from, okay, this is something I can use for little Webflow scripts here and there, to this is a cool toy that I can definitely play around with and build some prototypes and stuff like that. And from there, it has gotten absolutely ridiculous. So not too long ago, I want to say around when Claude Code came out, I can't even remember when that was. I started using it and going, whoa, okay, I can actually make like very well functioning, reliable, sustainable web apps now just through prompting. This is insane. But there was a ton of issues. Like I would do it for myself because, if I looked and I'm like, this thing that I'm trying to build is not going too well, I'll scrap it and move on. But if I had a client telling me, for example, hey, you need to build this, at that point in time, like I'm not going to do this with AI, because if I run into a problem, how am I going to fix it? But as it's gotten better, and most recently with Opus 4.5, it is literally getting to a point where anything that I want to do, I can do it as good or better than I would be able to do it manually with Claude Code. So it got to a point where it's like I can build decent functional UIs using ShadCN. So if anyone doesn't know what ShadCN is, it's like a framework for building component libraries. In a nutshell, AI does not have eyes. Wow, crazy statement. AI has no eyes. So it can't see necessarily what it's designing, what it's building. So ShadCN is like a very simple to use component library where AI can go, okay, I know there needs to be a drop down here. I know there needs to be a sidebar. I know there needs to be a card. And since it uses ShadCN, that stuff is all beautiful out of the box. And so I started using that. And I'm like, wow, I can get some functional UIs that actually look good. And I can actually start building some apps. This is cool. But first it was Gemini 3. Now it's Opus 4.5. Now we're not just talking about AI being able to use component libraries to like, build something that looks passable. Like it's building UIs for me that are genuinely better than what I can do in Webflow, which is insane. And as someone who's spent years, like I've been mostly focused on Webflow, let's say since 2019. So that's, 6 full years at this point. To get to the point where it's like AI is so good that it can do what I'm doing in Webflow and more very, very quickly. And so that's one thing with web apps and all that. But then when you look at, WordPress and Webflow for marketing sites, my whole thing this whole time is like, okay, AI is really good for building like apps and functional stuff. But if you want something really beautiful, it's not going to do it. It's just going to build generic stuff. That's changed. I am currently, let's say it's not set, nothing is set in stone yet, but I am rebuilding our marketing site, which has been in Webflow since 2018 using Claude Code with it's React Next.js, and it uses something called Sanity, which is just a headless CMS. And the cool thing is you can also use WordPress. I've never used WordPress in like a real kind of headless setup like this, but you can do it. Yeah. And the site that we're ending up with is like, it's killer. It's killer. So I genuinely, like, we're at a point now where looking at these tools that I love so much, WordPress and Webflow, like I'm not trying to be the AI hype guy who's like, AI is taking over everything and everything is AI now, throw out all your other tools. I don't want to be that guy. But in reality, in my life and my work, it's getting to a point where using AI is allowing me to create better stuff faster than what has ever been possible. And that's insane. Like, what's next from here? I genuinely don't know, because right now, yeah, okay, you can give me Claude code and you can give some random guy off the street Claude code, and I am inevitably going to create something better because I do have that, kind of like how you said, like that engineering brain, that logic focused brain, and a little bit more experience with this. But like, how long until a guy from down the street is going to be able to build something just as good as me? I don't know. I have literally no idea. And this is a rabbit hole that I can go down for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there, obviously. I would say I've been using AI for a while, but I've been using it as like, just like, I don't know, single modal or whatever, like where it's just like ChatGPT chats or Claude chats or what have you. And then in the last like month, I've really kicked it up when, again, like I said, I saw like your content and so much else. And I'm like, we could definitely do some cool stuff here. And it was all coalescing kind of like right around the time of, I feel like Gemini 3 Pro was the big one that was like, oh, now these UIs look good. That's what like I heard and what I was seeing. And then Opus 4.5 came out. And I have actually a question that you probably have the answer to. Selfish for me, but the audience might get something out of it. I heard something right at the time, because everything happens literally, it seems like in bunches. It's like, oh, this is the fucking greatest. Oh no, this is the great. Like the next day, the next company that brings one out is the greatest model and everything. But when they came out with Gemini 3 Gemini 3 Pro or whatever, UIs were really good. Then I heard something around that time that you could download like the design skill, like the UI skill, so to speak, for Claude. Is that all like wrapped into 4.5 now, Opus 4.5? Like, do you need to do anything extra to get beautiful UIs?
Honestly, so at this point with Opus 4.5, if you know what I like about Opus, it's not too opinionated. So Gemini, I find like if you don't really care too much about design stuff like that, Gemini is going to give you something nicer, faster, but it kind of has its own like Gemini twang to it. I really don't know how to explain this. Whereas Claude, it's just going to give you what you ask for. If you ask for a UI for a AI image generator dashboard, it's going to give you that UI. It's not going to be crazy, but it's going to be fine. So like out of the box, you're going to get something better with Gemini than with Opus, more opinionated. But if you train Opus, and I'll explain how to do that in a second, then you're going to end up with something not just really good, but really on brand. Like I said, I'm working on right now like a new version of the marketing site, which is fully built using Opus 4.5. And what I did in order to get that, so on the topic of the front-end design skill, adding that in immediately started creating some better UIs. And at this point, every time I needed to design something, I just say use the front-end design skill. And it works. So, but I haven't really tried enough without. So all I would say is use that front end design skill. I have a video that's like a couple minutes showing you how to do that. You may have seen it. Yep. Very simple, very straightforward. And from my experience, you get better designs. But the real way to use Opus to get better designs is by training it. And I'll walk you through how I did that. So I took our marketing site, memberstack.com, looked at that, used the Playwright MCP, which for anyone watching this who doesn't know, it basically allows AI to take screenshots and analyze those screenshots from any website. So what I had it do was look at the live site, go through and make a markdown file. So I didn't start and say, build me a website. No, absolutely not. I started the project, opened it up, and I said, hey, go through the Memberstack site, make me a markdown file with the branding language and the visual language. So it made this big markdown file of like, this is how the brand talks. This is things that it does say. This is things it doesn't say. It uses blue. It uses rounded corners. All the stuff, basically, that can verbally be captured for how our design looks. And then once I had that, then I said, make me a page and use the front-end design skill. And it took that markdown file, went, okay, this is the overall visual language. It should be like kind of bold, modern, not too intense, clean, simple, all this stuff. And somehow it took all that and it created like the most insane. I think I could show you something super quick that's just going to blow your mind, like one page
Yeah.
really quick. And I will say, from my experience and from anyone else who's seen this, I have never seen a better AI design ever, period. Probably next week this is going to change. There's going to be something even better. But right now, no. So let me show you this. Everything here, and I want to be clear, no, I did not like one-shot this. I wasn't like, build me a website and it built this. No. You still have to play around with and have conversations with and prompt AI. What I will say, on the other hand, is I did not interfere. 100% of the code that's written here is Opus that was done through my prompting. So moving down, we have a lot of interactions on this site. And again, all of this stuff was designed and developed by Opus. Opus came up with the idea for most of it too. Some things I kind of gave it some instructions, but like I said, show someone like vibe coding and adding Memberstack to their site, and it built this. Which, I mean, how good is this? Like, for me to build something like this in Webflow, and this is why it's getting so crazy, this would take me like days to get something this clean working. I got all of these in really not much time at all, and it just gets better, right? So like I had it, use the images and stuff like that from our live site. We've got more interactions going on down here. All of this stuff was done using Opus. And so when I look at this and I'm like, how long would it take me to design and then develop something like this in Webflow? A page like this would take me, honestly, I mean, including these animations, like a month. Like, animations are nothing easy. You see how smooth and clean all of these are. This whole page, again, it wasn't one-shotted. This is the result of like 8 hours of prompting. But the other thing is this, especially with Opus, once you have a good starting point, once you have such a beautiful, page like this to start from, I mean, look how clean this like FAQ section is. It's beautiful. Then it becomes really good. So then you can start to one-shot things like the design for this blog page over here, for example. Everything you see, this was one-shotted. I mean, they don't have images, but whatever. This blog post page as well, besides a couple tweaks, this was one-shotted. These are all beautiful designs that literally with one individual prompt, you can get those designs once you get the starting point. And so like, that's the thing. So both you and I are people who have been building things manually, we'll call it, for a long time. And, I take what I do seriously, but how do you feel seeing something like that it was fully built by AI?
Well, it's nasty, dude. I mean, that is a gross, in the best way possible, site there. And I mean, I have a lot of questions that I kind of know the answer to in some regards, but if we can, we can slightly dive into a couple of them. Like the first one that I had was when you showed the interactions and everything, or specifically like the part where it was like for developers, for Webflow, et cetera, whatever. My only thought there, and this is an easy solvable problem, were those things that it totally built on its own, in the sense of they looked like not necessarily screen grabs, they looked like almost like screencasts or like captures of what the product should look like. Now, obviously, this is fixable. I mean, you could just go do that yourself, or potentially AI could just mimic it. But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if it was like a screenshot of the Webflow UI, have you been able to get it to do any of that yet, or would you still have to do some of that manual where you're providing the assets? You know what I mean? Like a GIF or MP4 or et cetera.
So for all of this stuff, I didn't provide any of the like finished assets. For example, you mentioned the Webflow animation there with the Webflow UI. What I did do was I took a screenshot of that sidebar in Webflow and I said, like, use this for reference. But it's getting really good. Again, some of the other things on that page, like there's this animation which shows like Google, Apple, GitHub logo, stuff like that. It got all of those.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find it does it and it's like a placeholder. It's not that. Sometimes it just does it right out of the box. Sometimes it doesn't do it and then I tell it get the actual image and it does. But I'm not having to provide it with anything other than direction. And so if you really know what you want, you can get something crazy with Opus. Like, again, you can't just say, I want a website and it's going to give you something like this. But if you know the structure that you want, you know the style that you want, like, So basically, and you mentioned about managing and then managing AI in that sense, like basically if you're a good creative director, Opus can give you everything you want.
Yeah. So let's talk about this just real quick. Opus 4.5 for that project, like just so if somebody wanted to get like a similar type of product, like something that good for their for their situation. Right now, obviously everything changes every 5 minutes, but as of December 11th, 2025, it was Opus 4.5. Did you do the front end design seal for that?
Yep. So basically, Opus 4.5, start to finish, starting with generating a markdown of what you want. So I
Yeah.
was using an existing site. However, if someone doesn't have that, explain what you want to it. Find some other websites for reference and explain to it. And once you get to the point where you can read through this markdown document and be like, yeah, that's what I want, that's when you start, and then use that front end design skill, and it's going to be a bit more creative. How does it work? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on it. It just does. It just looks sweet.
Yeah. Did you have to, you mentioned, did you say like Next.js? And did you have to, we don't have to go super deep into it. I know we're short on time here, but the way that I've dealt with this so far is like I've had it teach me, I'm familiar with WordPress. Give me some other alternatives. And like one of the things it recommended was like Astro. So I built out like a simple, just like interactive learning site with Astro, because that was like, it was like literally like almost like a one-to-one as far as like modern web development to WordPress. Has a similar, I don't know if you used Astro or not, but like, so all these different frameworks, like that's part of it. Is I think as a technical or creative director, you should probably know when to use what things so you can instruct the AI, or at least ask it like, hey, this is the brief for the project that we're trying to do. What do you recommend and why? And then kind of you make the decisions. So it was Next.js, and what was the other? Was there another piece of the framework?
So it was just a React app with Next.js. And to be honest with you, how does that actually work? I don't know. I know all of this stuff because, I mean, I very much so stick with React for the most part, unless there's a reason not to. Just for the reason that it is so popular and there's so much code out there that AI is extremely well trained on React. If you want to, let's say, use something like Svelte, I know some developers who tell me, through and through, like, React sucks, Svelte is the way to go. And they're very smart people, and I believe them. But React is better for me because AI knows it more. And you know how I mentioned I'm like the guy from the street, I can build something better with AI than he can. That is because of exactly what you mentioned, because I learn what these things are. I don't just say AI build me whatever. I go, what's a good tech stack? How is this going to function? What is needed for this to function? And then I give that to AI. Whereas if you don't do that, as of the time of recording this video, at least, because that very well might change in the near future, you do need to do that if you want good results with AI. Like, you don't need to know, React and Next.js. You don't need to know Astro. You don't need to know Flutter. I was building a mobile app recently too. You just need to know why. So for example, mobile app that I was just talking about, I don't have the time for like a side project thing, maintain a bunch of separate code bases. I know, because I was told this a long time ago, that mobile apps, it's like you got Android, you got Apple, and big companies, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you name it, they maintain separate code bases for all of these things. Flutter is like one code base that can be used as a web app. It can be used as an iOS app. It can be used as an Android app. It's like one for everything. And so I knew that. And so that's why I chose to use Flutter. And so imagine if I didn't know that and I'm like, build me an iOS app and it does that. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, I want it to work on Android too. And then I'm like, oh no, I need to do the whole code base. So know your stack.
Well, I think the one other thing too is like, I don't know if it's just like maybe from a little bit of experience or it's from just like doing, I don't know what it is. I have not found a good way to articulate it yet, but this whole thing, as I've played around again with Claude Code for a limited amount of time and the agentic workflows and all this stuff, like it comes so easily to me because I am so comfortable with like hitting the whisper flow buttons on my computer and just like talking into this thing and just telling it exactly like what I'm thinking and what I want to see. And then obviously, like you said, you have to give it references and context, because if you don't do that, it's going to have no idea what you want. But to me, it seems so natural. Like, it seems like extremely normal that, like, okay, let's say you wanted to hire a developer to build you a website. This is exactly what I would do. I would tell them what I want. I would tell them, the direction, the design style, the aesthetic, etc., like whatever. And then I would also ask questions because I'm curious and I want to make sure that, like, we're going in the right direction, so to speak. And like when you say, you wouldn't know how to use Flutter. I mean, I literally had this. I should have filmed this. I was like, I have used WordPress like my, almost my entire like dev career or whatever. Tell me what the modern equivalent is in, a JS framework or whatever. And it's like, well, Astro is a pretty good choice. And then we just like interactively learned that. And then maybe there's some other ones too. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just, what I'm saying is, like, it's not even just a tool for creating and developing and building. It's also a tool for learning, literally at the exact same time. It's a partner, and I hope people start to completely understand that, because like the ones that the people that are stuck now in the sense of like, oh, it just does things for me. No, it can like literally, it knows more than you, bro. Like, you know what I mean? It knows more than you. You're the director still, but it knows more than you. So just ask it questions, like just have a conversation with it. The plan mode, et cetera, whatever. You don't even need to do plan mode, but just like go somewhere and just like kind of talk to it. And I don't know, it's super crazy to me what we're able to do now in such a speedy way, in a quick amount of time. So
literally, and it's like the executor for you. So that's something a lot of people like. Again, right now, as of recording this, because things are changing so quickly, if we talked a few weeks ago, I would have been rambling on about how AI is so good at everything except front end. And, look where we're at right now. Yeah. But like, as of right now, that's the thing. AI is, it's doing things for you, but it's not doing anything for you. To put it simply, if you don't type that prompt, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to work independently of you. You need to, and another thing is this. People are like, oh, it's going to take all of our jobs and all that stuff. I've got an interesting take on that because, like, building websites, for example, anyone has been able to build a website for a long time. Go on Squarespace, go on Wix. If you have the slightest inkling of technical ability, if you're able to turn on a phone, then you should be able to use something like Squarespace or Wix. Why isn't everyone building websites? And so now AI, well, anyone can do anything. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to, replace developers, going to replace designers, going to do. People have been able to develop for a very long time now. People have been able to design for a very long time now with simple tools that allow you to do it, and they don't. Why is AI going to change that? Do we think everyone's just suddenly going to become passionate about websites? Absolutely not. My dream for, a whole AI takes our job situation is that we work on what we're passionate about. I, for example, tennis. Tennis is cool. I don't know anything about it. I'm not too passionate about it. Someone who loves tennis and is sitting there and goes, when I'm doing this, I want something to help me improve my swing. That person has the passion inside of them to build an app that really helps tennis players. And so they're going to do that. I can't compete with them. It's not because they're a better developer or I'm a better developer. It's because they know and love tennis. If you're someone who really is into sales and loves sales, you're going to build tools for salespeople. I'm hoping we're getting to a point where we're not dictated by our abilities, but we're dictated by our passions. Let's put it that way. And so if AI removes the barrier from like, I had this sweet idea for an app. Oh, now I need to learn programming. No, I'm not going to do. I don't have the time to do that. I got kids. I got a job. I got, all this fun stuff. Now it's going to be like, okay, I have the time to mess around and I really want this outcome. And so I'm going to do it. And that's where I really hope we're heading. Like you're not going to have people just random John from down the street building a B2B SaaS. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter if all of the tools in the world are available to him. He doesn't care and he doesn't want to do it. And so I think that's where we're heading, and I hope that's where we're heading.
Last question, mainly on the AI thing, and then I got a couple quick fire ones, and then I'll let you go. I know it's late. Have you gotten any pushback on vibe coding? Like what, coming from my side of the equation here, like I've been living in like the WordPress community realm, and like I can see both sides because like I'm a I'm an understanding person, but like the idea of like, oh, we don't want to use WordPress. Obviously, that's like even open source, so that's like another argument. But vibe coding, not necessarily. Like if you were talking like Webflow versus WordPress, obviously they would be giving you shit about that. But specifically like vibe coding, like the simplest concept of you don't know what that thing is producing. Like you know what it's producing output, but you don't know like the actual code. You don't know any of that. Like, have you gotten any of that pushback? Maybe not directly, but have you seen any of that? What's your response to that? How do you process any of that? Do you not care? Because I'm almost at the point of not caring necessarily. like I want to know, but at the same time, I just feel like this is too powerful. And as long as there's some best practices that you can kind of follow, but the fact that you need to know every bit of syntax and everything, I can't really fully get on board with that anymore. Like if you want, depending on what you want to do, Anytime
someone says that to you, ask them this question. So your name is Mark. Mark starts with an M. What's an M in binary code?
Good point.
You don't have a fucking clue. I don't know. Who the hell knows? Who needs to know? We've built abstraction layers on top. Computers were originally like, yo, we found a way to electrify rocks. What are we going to do with this? Oh, shit. Now we found a way to translate these electrified rocks into like letters that can pop up on a screen. Useless. Nobody cares. More and more and more. And technology is advancing because we're building these abstraction layers. So when it comes to people, oh, well, you don't know what's going on under the hood. Who gives a shit? You don't know what's going on under the hood. I'm just on a different hood from you. You're here. I'm here. Eventually someone's going to be here and I'm still going to be here. And that's how it goes. However, what I do hear on that argument of the whole like, oh, you don't know what's going on, stuff like that. Let me put it this way. A vibe coder, not any vibe coder, but like someone who just got into it now, they don't have any technical background, they don't know how things work, they're just messing around with Claude code. That person can't manage an enterprise application because that person doesn't think with their logic brain. If something breaks, the best they can do is ask Claude, why is this broken? Whereas if you have that technical brain, what are you going to do? You're going to test. You're going to look for other weird things and try to link the two together, get to the root of the problem and fix it. The same thing I do with WordPress, you do with WordPress. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so somebody like me or you, we can push code to enterprise applications. I believe that. Someone might give me shit for that in the comments. I welcome them to do so. But at this point, if someone's sitting there and they're like, yeah, well, what happens when I have a translation app? What happens when your translation feature breaks, huh? You don't know. You don't know. Buddy, I have a code file called translation.js that makes an API call to Claude and translates it. If my translations aren't working, it's probably in that file, isn't it? Right? And guess what? I don't even need to know that. I'm going to say, hey, Claude, where is the bug? It comes from here. Like, honestly, there's definitely some truth to the fact that, like, no, not just anyone with no technical background is like suddenly a developer. They're not. There's a big gap in engineering ability. Forget coding, forget anything. It's engineering at the end of the day. There is a big gap, but like, that's such a small piece of it. I think the majority of this pushback we're getting is from people who spent the time, learned how to code, learned their stacks, learned whatever they learned, and then now they feel threatened by the fact that anyone else can do it, which I understand. Like, I fully understand that. I've been building websites for, a long time. I know I'm 23, but like I said, I've been building websites since I was 13, man. That's 10 years, that's half my life. And suddenly something came around that literally does my job better than I do it. But like, that's the world that we live in, Like, if you use React, you took the job from someone who was just building, like, writing static code. If you're writing static code in HTML, CSS, you took the job from someone who was writing, I don't even know what came before that, right? There's layers to all of this, and I think most of the pushback is really just angry people who aren't willing to get with the times. But there's certainly a lot of truth to it. Someone who comes around, they're like, development is dead. What? No. The engineers are always going to be engineers. Someone who wants to think, how do I solve a problem? They're always going to do that. Same thing with designers. Someone who wants to be creative, they're always going to be able to do that no matter how good AI is at it. But like, dude, the tools are here. And the people who are pushing back against it like that, I wonder where they're going to be in a couple of years.
I'm in pretty much Full agreement with you. I think the best way to think about it, I have yet to articulate it well, but just in the scratch pad here that I have in front of me, like it's almost like you have like an org chart of like what a typical team would be. And I don't know the exact titles, but you know, rough titles would be like, you know, you have your project lead or your engineering lead and your creative director up there. At this current time, you or I still have to be those roles, right? Like if we were trying to create a one-man band, like you still have to be those roles. But the dev and the designer, like the junior devs or whatever, like that you would have doing this stuff, that's all taken care of. And I mean, it just makes sense to me. It's like, I don't like to say it like this, but generally, all the websites that I've built, potentially that you built, like we've done cool things on them. They've all been unique. But I mean, I don't know if this resonates with you. We're not doing anything incredibly innovative, like in a sense of like we're not going to Mars. Like we are doing unique things. We're doing things that are impactful to our businesses or, you know, the businesses that we work for, et cetera. But they're not like completely new. Like it's not like we're discovering fire. Okay. So it's like, if that's the case, then everything roughly that we've ever done, it probably exists in some form on the internet already. And that is what these things are trained on. So they have the knowledge we require in order to do what we need to do. So we just need to instruct it to do the perfect configuration and amalgamation of shit that we want specifically for this web app or for this, you know, website, et cetera. And that just, again, that's one of those things that just makes so much sense to me. It's like all the knowledge is out there. Our job is to put it together and instruct it to put it together. So then we're the engineering lead, the creative director, project lead, whatever you call it. It's the dev, it's the designer. And then there's one other role, like you were talking about, that we have to be, and that's QA. Like we have to make sure that we're testing it. I mean, it could test sort of on its own, obviously, and it does that, but then it still hits errors. Like I had it happen. I was like building like a little Streamlit Python app thing, and I tried to, you know, upload something, and it's like error. You need obviously an API key, or error. There's like something wrong, and you're like tracing the stack, and you're like, okay, well, hey, our job as QA people is to test and then be able to provide steps to reproduce and provide the error back to the dev, which is Claude Code. And then it figures it out because it's fucking written right there. Just because we don't exactly understand potentially what it is, even though we're smart, like we can kind of see where the files are, et cetera, or whatever. It's like, here it is. Like, this is how it happened. Here it is. And it gets it. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it's just, that's where we're at now. So
literally, it is insane how capable it's getting. And really, at the end of the day, traditionally you got your, let's say junior designers and junior developers. Like I don't know too much about it, but there's apparently like some crisis, like no junior developers are getting hired. And go figure, you know, why aren't they getting hired? Because they're not needed. You need these people with these smart engineering minds in order to put stuff together. But a guy like I've always said like code monkey, just someone who really they're human beings, I respect them, whatever. But like all they're good for in that sense is just pushing some lines of code. Obviously that person isn't needed. And the people who always lose in history, job-wise, are the people who are like, I'm a junior developer, I'm a TypeScript developer, I'm a this, I'm a that. And the people who win are the people who are like, I build apps, I build websites, or take it a step further, I help businesses make money, whatever it is. If you're that person, then as soon as a new technological advancement comes out, you are ahead of the curve because you're like, ooh, I can accomplish my goal of building apps faster with this. Whereas when you're a TypeScript developer, you're like, oh no, I'm a TypeScript developer and I'm scared now because this is, you know, doing it for me. So instead I'm going to be angry and yell at people online about how vibe coding isn't real and all this stuff. Like, you got to be outcome oriented, not skill oriented, because skills fade away with time. Like, what if you were a hammer expert when the drill came out? Yeah, people still use hammers, but like you just lost so much because someone, probably screwdrivers and drills would be, not hammers and drills. Those are totally separate. Anyways, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be like, I'm the guy with the screwdriver. You got to be like, I'm the guy who screws into walls. You know? And so as soon as you see that shiny drill, you're going to pick it up and you're going to use it and you're going to be ahead of the curve while screwdriver guy cries in the corner because you're not a real pro if you use that drill. It's all about the movement of the wrist. Like, shut up, buddy. Pick up a drill. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, brother. All right, let me hit you with these last couple questions there's a lot of stuff here, are just like 3 quick ones that I picked up on throughout this. I want to hit you with them. They're a little meta, but you can keep the answer short if you want. Do you like being the boss? The reason I asked that question is you've had like this trajectory of, you're kind of like co-founder, and then you were effectively the boss within the business because you're doing all the work. And now you're like at, Memberstack, and you're kind of your own, you're not really your own boss, obviously, but you're like, you have the freedom to do stuff. So I know you like freedom. Do you like being a founder or a boss or a leader? Or I know you're obviously young and extremely, but you've extreme journey that you've been on already. Like what at this point, how would you introspect on your personality from that role of like potentially being a leader, co-founder, or boss situation?
Well, I mean, honestly, growing up, I had this idea of like, I want to be my own boss. I want to be my own boss because my dad, worked for a government like insurance company and all this stuff. And naturally, as I think most people who work a job like that, didn't love it very much. And I could just see that like lack of freedom. And so I was always like, I want to be my own boss. I want to be my own boss. That's what started with me being a freelancer. That's what started me starting an agency. And the thing that I learned is that there is no such thing. Being your own boss is when you're an old person retired with a bunch of money in your pocket and you dictate what's going to happen every day. If you're making money, you have a boss. I don't care. You can have your own company. Do you have clients? They're your boss. Do you have customers? They're your boss. You have a job? Well, your boss is your boss. It's pretty straightforward. So you're always going to have a boss. And on that note, that was something that I learned by actually being my own boss. I'm like, I have too many bosses. I thought this was that I'm not going to have bosses. I have too many bosses. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's its own thing. There's a lot more to deal with. There's less risk. Your one boss at your job can fire you. If your one customer leaves, well, life will go on. One client leaves, bit of a bigger hit, life will still go on. So that's really the difference, but it's also more complicated dealing with a lot of bosses versus only one boss. The key is having good bosses, good customers, good clients, or a good boss if you have a job. And when it comes to dictating things, that's something interesting. I think everyone, perhaps out of ego, everyone thinks like, I want to be the guy who calls the shots, who I'm the big visionary, I'm this, I'm that. I think everyone's good at different things, and you need to figure out what you're good at. For me, that's this. I'm not a visionary. There are people who are just able to come up with these ideas out of thin air and go, that's what we should work on. I had this idea and I want to do it. I thought I was that before. I'm not really that. What I am is the guy who can hear a visionary, come up with an idea, and then say, okay, this is how we're going to make it happen. I am very good at figuring out ways to make things happen and calling the shots on that. But when it comes to the idea, like I don't think I would ever be a CEO. I don't think I would want to be a CEO. I don't think I'd be a good CEO. However, being a COO, again, I'm talking in corporate terms, but let's just use that, like a chief operating officer, absolutely. That's the kind of thing. And I've learned this about myself. I've tried to be that person who really like comes up with ideas. I just don't. But the same guy who comes up with an idea, he has no clue how to execute it, whereas I know how to execute it. So I always like working with people who are that visionary so that I can help deliver on that vision. And so I kind of like double answered that, but hopefully that clears it up.
Well, it makes sense. You're a problem solver, I mean, you see it, you see the problem, you get the problem, and then you kill it, you tackle it. So love it.
Yep.
Okay. So another one I got here real quick is we've talked about it multiple times here. Interesting journey, to say the least. I would say quite unique. I don't, starting at such a young age, being so ambitious, literally dropping out of high school. Loaded question. I'm not asking you to answer it generally necessarily, but the way I have it written is, would you recommend that path to others? And then you could like obviously asterisk, like maybe not everyone, but like, what do you think were some of the things that like I don't know if there's any 13-year-olds watching this show, but my point is like, would you recommend that path to others? Like, would you, you mentioned children, like, do you think you would push them in that direction? I mean, I think most people in the United States probably have like thoughts about college, like their opinions on college now, the cost benefit analysis on that. But like, I mean, even high school, like how are you gonna, again, recommend it to your kids or just anyone in general that's like trying to find their path?
I mean, really, really, it depends on the kind of person you are. I don't regret anything that I did. I did what felt right to me at the time. If I make a mistake, I learn from it. One thing I will say is a fatal flaw with my way of operating is I am very bad at learning from other people. As in, if someone says, don't walk over here, the ground will break, I'm the first person to walk over there and have the ground break from below me. And I have made a lot of mistakes in my life and in my career that people have warned me about, and I just didn't listen to them, and I decided to do it. But I've also had a bunch of people, you know, like dropping out of high school with a bunch of like, when I was going to get my, basically I didn't technically drop out. I got registered as homeschooled, and there's no test. My theory was, I was like, okay, I can technically finish high school if I get registered as homeschooled, and then I just don't do it. So that's what I did. And, you know, I'm in my like guidance counselor's office thing, and I'm like surrounded by teachers and principals. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm going to work online. They're like, that's not real. You're not going to make any money. You're going to have to go get your GED, blah, blah, blah. Barking at me about this. You know, my parents, they had their own concerns. Obviously, they love me. They're my parents. But like, just all around me, people being like, don't do this. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. And it worked. I mean, at this point, I'm like, I got my own issues, man. But like, all in all, and the things that people can see, I'm, in my opinion, living the dream that I always had. I'm in Italy. I live in Italy now. I always wanted to live in Europe, and Europe is not all it's made out to be, but that's a topic for another thing. Really, man. Would I recommend it to people? Well, I would recommend doing what you know is right, because if you let somebody else, be it your parents, be it your teachers, be it societal pressures, dictate your path in life, you are going to be forever resentful when it doesn't work out in the way that you want it to work out. You need to listen to yourself, because at the end of the day, when you make a mistake, when you fuck something up, when you fall on the ground, it's a lot easier when you only have yourself to blame, because you can learn from that, become a stronger person, and move on. But if you are doing something because, you know, if you want to be, I see a whole bunch of people I'm seeing on X, like these young founders, these 13, 14, 15-year-old founders building products, and they're hyped about it. They're passionate about it. And then you have people like quote tweeting it with like all sorts of likes. And it's like, go to school, do that. What do you, don't, those people are stupid. Like, if you could be 8 years old, and if you're like, I want to build a business, I have this burning thing in my heart telling me to do this, do it. Is it the right decision? I don't know. You know, you'll find out eventually. And at the end of the day, you're better off listening to yourself, because then you'll only have yourself to blame. Whereas there are people out there, man, who all they do is complain and complain about how this person fucked them over. This person told them this. They shouldn't have done this. Bad idea. That is a miserable existence. It's better to be on the ground on your own terms than sitting in an office chair at a company you don't like, working a job you don't like, because someone told you that that's the way that you should live your life. Because even if you don't know it, you're going to hate that person. You know how many people like resent their parents? It's sad. You know, their parents told them, you know, go to college, do this, do that. Now they're in debt. They have all these problems, and they're like, fuck you, mom. Now I have all this shit in my life because you told, I didn't even want to do this, you know? And I understand mom, because she just loves her kid and wanted to help her kid out and tell them to do what she thought was the right decision. I understand the kid thinking their mom was right and just caving in, basically. But at the end of the day, don't listen to anyone but yourself, because when you fall, you will only have yourself to blame. And so on that note, I recommend everybody does what I did. If you feel it's right to go to school, go to school. If you feel it's right to leave school, leave school. You feel it's right to start a company, start a company. You feel it's right to have a job, have a job. And when you inevitably make a mistake, you blame yourself, you become a smarter person, and you move on.
I love it. Yeah, resentment is. I was glad you said that in there, because that's not a life you want to lead for sure. So that's pretty much where it's all stemming from. Yeah, you don't want that. So, all right, last one I got for you, brother. You kind of mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about these last two in a way, but basically, like, I look at you, and again, the journey where you're at now, ambition, passion, you know, time with Memberstack now. and you're young, obviously. But what is your goal? What do you feel like you're moving towards? Do you see it kind of like a day to day time, like, hour to hour, whatever, like you're just kind of moving? Are you trying to, like, do you have any specific aspirations that you're trying to do? I mean, and you mentioned that you don't necessarily see yourself as a CEO. So do you think like you want to continue to move into like a more COO roles? I'm not saying you're leaving Memberstack tomorrow or anything. I'm just saying, like, when you sit there and you're working on Memberstack stuff and then you're working on AI stuff and you're posting it, like, do you have a specific goal, trajectory, mission in mind that you are moving towards?
Well, I will say that I had goals growing up, which was to be, financially okay, to live where I wanted to live, and to have kids, and to have a house, to own a house. And I accomplished all of those very quickly. And after that, I'm like, I always just thought as soon as I get to these goals, I'm going to like somehow feel better in life. No. Unfortunately, you feel the same as you did before. And if anything, you feel a sense of emptiness because the thing that was driving you every day is gone. I mean, you did it. Congrats. Not like someone died. But so what I realized that those goals, like, it's good to have one, meet it, move on to the next and all that stuff. But like, especially with the way that our industry is going, I don't know how things are going to look in 2 days, let alone in 5 years. And so my constant goal is to be better than yesterday. Financially, I want to make more money today than I made yesterday. Work-wise, I want to make a bigger impact today than I did yesterday. I want to be a more respectful and humble person today than I was yesterday. And that's really the way that I try to compare everything, because, it's really, really difficult to actually go ahead and, first of all, set these goals, then meet them, and then you don't even know if it's right. I know some people out there who basically, they set themselves a goal years ago. It's like, I want to do this in life. So they work so hard, they did it, and then they're like, I didn't even like this. This sucks. A lot of people, when it comes to going to school, they're in high school, they hear about a job, and they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. And, perhaps it's like a fancy job title and all this stuff. So they're like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So they get great grades in school. They go to college. They go into debt. They get great marks in college. They spend so long trying to get a good job. They finally get that job and they're like, man, I hate this. This is not fun. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I don't like it. And goals are amazing, but they can also take you down that path. Right. So I do my best to just understand, like, I'm changing. The world is changing. Everything's changing. So like, better today than I was yesterday is the way that I sum up my desired progress.
Well, the name of the show is Fueled by Progress, and you're a great case study for that. It's perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly that.
I didn't plan that, but that's perfect.
Look at that. That's literally it. That's what I love, is progress every day. What does progress mean? I don't know. But if I can look back and say this is better than yesterday, I love when I look at my projects from 6 months ago and I'm like, this is horse shit. Like, this sucks. A lot of people, they get embarrassed by that. I'm like, that means I made this much of an improvement in that much time. Progress. I am fueled by it.
That's amazing. That's what a hell of an endorsement there. I appreciate it, Julian. Thank you so much, man. This has been fantastic. Where can I'll leave links to everything in the description down below. Where can people go if they want to follow your journey, find out more about you, work with you, Memberstack, etc.? What's the best place to send people?
2 places. My X is where I post everything from Memberstack stuff to just some meme that I saw, whatever. And long form content is all on the Memberstack YouTube channel. So over there is where you can learn exactly how I build stuff. And my goal with all of that content isn't to be like, hey, I'm the expert that has all this stuff to give you. It's like, this is what I learned yesterday and this is what I'm showing you today. So that people can essentially join me on my journey to getting better at building stuff. So if you want to learn, go there. If you want to see my unfiltered thoughts, then go to X.
Awesome. Julian, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for sitting down.
Appreciate you for having me. Happy to talk at any point in the future. This was great. And see you soon.
Best of luck.